Philip's Training is asking, is deportation an intrinsic evil? I see some bishops using that language, but from my understanding, I don't think that's the case. What does the church teach about sovereignty, Father?
Right. Well, there you go. There's the word that, of course, the church emphasizes the right to migrate in search of the basic human necessities of safety, of hope for the future, of reasonable view of prosperity, that peoples can move. We see this in the Bible, and of course you'll hear that quoted a lot. But countries also have a right to borders. They have a right to secure the common good of their country. And as we've seen in our country, we have a big country, we have a lot of resources, but too much all at one time can also produce many ill social effects and can sort of harm the Commonwealth. So that's all to be debated using sources of knowledge, divine revelation, and reason in the political sphere. We're to be guided in these principles by the bishops, but bishops don't make domestic policy. We can only speak against domestic policies that are intrinsically evil, and that's the heart of the question here from Philip's Training, is deportation an intrinsic evil? So no, it's certainly not an intrinsic evil, but what the pastors of the church are dealing with, I think, that our listeners have to really understand, especially when we're really frustrated with things that we hear spoken by our bishops and our priests, and especially if we're frustrated that they don't focus on other things at times we feel they should speak on, is that their focus is really on the particular real humans in front of them that they have gotten close to through pastoral activity, through baptizing their children, hearing their problems, doing their weddings, talking about their family problems, and then they come to you with very real fear that they're going to be sent back to the place that they fled from maybe 10, 15 years ago in a situation where they were enduring abuse or real hunger or a fear for their lives or gang activity. And of course, as we know, plenty of people are in this country illegally with major criminal records. And of course, that's a problem that has to be dealt with as well. But the majority probably of the folks being deported, the only thing on their criminal record might be their illegal entry into the country, which is as far as I know, I believe that is a felony, whatever that means. I don't even know the significance of a felony versus misdemeanor because they don't all seem to be equally weighted. It doesn't seem, there's some misdemeanors seem worse than some felonies, but I've been to places in Central America where there are no men in the little village because they've all gone to the United States. I've seen a kind of migrant camp in Mexico that's placed by a train station where folks coming from Central America come and can stay for one night, have to empty their pockets and hand everything over so that they can't bring weapons or drugs in, and can get a meal and a bed for one night, and then they're back out the next day and back on the caravan moving towards the southern border of the United States. And seeing, I was there one day. That's the only day I've been there one time visiting while I was in a study abroad program, or a Spanish immersion program in the seminary. And there was a boy celebrating his 18th birthday there. They brought him out a little cake and sung Mañanitas to him. They're just happy birthday, kind of in Spanish. And he was telling me about how he couldn't wait to go to New York City and see what he'd saw in the Marvel movies, and how he was gonna make it big. And he had these dreams. And there are these people that, as they're coming towards the border, they do not have our concept of law in a country, law and order. They're coming from largely places where there is no law and order, which is part of why they're leaving. They're simply looking for a better life. It doesn't mean that they have, every single one of these people has a right intrinsically to enter the country. And I know many of our people that object to some of the language being used by bishops and pastors would say that they simply have to check in at the border and enter through a legal process. And so we're sympathetic. What we don't like to see is the law broken, especially when it provides opportunity for so many very bad men and women to enter the country, and so many children who are unaccompanied to be lost throughout the country to who knows what. We should pray for them, because we know that many of them are still lost and somewhere in this country, perhaps being trafficked and abused. So it's these sensitive issues, unfairly for us require even more precision in language, even though our passions are strong around them. So to the heart of the question, Philip's Training, no, deportation is not an intrinsic evil, but I know many of the pastors with these things on their hearts are a bit shocked by the swiftness with which the administration came in and began to change the policy that had been enacted by the prior administrations, of course the Biden administration. But going back 30 years, we've had basically unsecured borders, and there's a big change of policy, except for the notable 2016 to 2020 policy, the remain in Mexico and all that. I'd say be patient with your bishops, your pastors. I'd say that if you're frustrated with some things they say you're finding are too much, like saying it's an intrinsic evil, to be patient with them. Maybe don't focus on it. pray for them, especially pray for the people that are enduring these things. It might be completely legal that somebody is just sent back to their country, but it's sort of hard. It's very hard on that person who it might have a very low level of education, who maybe has a bank account here that if they're shipped back just on one day's notice, they lose access to that money they made. They may be separated from family and friends and go back to a place that they really don't have a place in anymore. It's going to be very hard for them. So it's not a good thing that's happening. That doesn't mean that the political policy can't be enacted, because political policy can't make a utopia, and sometimes there's unintended effects of even actions that are permissible. But we shouldn't, I think, rejoice in the deportations, seeing the amount of simple people that are suffering greatly in a world that's much bigger than them, and with things they don't really understand. We might rejoice in seeing criminals, brought to justice when they have warrants for their arrest in their home countries for horrible things they've done. But we also pray for them. When Jesus told us to visit the imprisoned, he didn't say visit the imprisoned and innocent. So yeah, let's pray. And for those that are very, very, very angry at the administration's policy, because I know people come to that in confession, they're just very frustrated with everything. Also be patient, knowing that, hey, where there's a political reality going in one direction, we're not enforcing the law for whatever reason, the letter of the law, that when you see an opposite reaction, you almost have to expect that something will happen in the other way, that it's unfair that there are simple people sort of just in the way of an ebb and flow of political debate and policy changes. But basically, politics are not always fair. We should be involved, and then we shouldn't just be involved in our politics every 4 year at the presidential election cycle, but we should be involved locally, especially, and at our state level, and with the party that we support, to ensure that it continues to move in the direction of reason and love, and not just going to these extremes, because it produces all kinds of, I think, unintended effects. So let's pray especially for the simple people who are caught up in all this, who might not have a right to be here, but shouldn't be passed around like political tokens either. So God bless our immigrants, legal and illegal.
Do you want to support Ask a Priest Live? Click here to donate to this channel and support our mission, or donate safe and secure at thestationofthecross.com.